These parts will form a temporary lifting keel which I designed and am now building for my friends over at the Ghostship. These 15mm plywood panels have been cut on this small CNC and need to be glued together to eventually be 6 layers thick. For the glue we're using epoxy and I'm very inexperienced with this material. Good thing my friend Chris is a shipwright and was here with me to glue up the first half. Now let's talk gluing options with Chris. So could you maybe shed a light on what the options are and what we choose?
So either of the glues are absolutely perfect for the job. PU glue is a lot cheaper and it will glue up nicely. The downside of gluing flat timber with PU glue is it expands as it glues, so you can get wobbles. In this instance, it's not such a big issue. It's a really simple, easy glue to work with. It kind of makes sense to use that, but there is another side to it too, which is the epoxy. When we put epoxy on, we can also put thickened epoxy in that as well, and therefore we don't need to clamp down as hard on everything. So with this stuff, we need to clamp. So we'd have to screw frequently to stop the undulations and the like. So if you want to save some money, great stuff. Absolutely brilliant, but it's going to take more time.
Right.
For you, because you're going to be moving into laminating your own bulkheads and frames and all the rest of it as you go. I think just getting used to working with epoxy is probably the sensible move.
Let's try to repeat what we learned from Chris and glue up the second half, shall we? While you see me prepare these parts for the epoxy glue up, you're essentially looking at somebody who's trying to learn to work with epoxy. And this is something I need, as Chris said before, because I'm building a 5-meter long ocean-going sailboat called Sienna. It's a Setka A designed by Janusz Maderski. And I want to cross the ocean with that. So the ocean is an unforgiving place. And yeah, I need to be able to trust this boat, and I'm building it myself. So yeah, I think it's important to get this right. And it's great that I have this project now to learn this on without the high stakes that I'll be facing in 2029 when I plan to cross the Atlantic. I'm happy to see the parts and the dowels fit together very well. And that means that I can now mark the glue area, as you can see here. So let's take it apart. Doing things consistently and to avoid glue on the wrong areas, I'm marking where epoxy has to be applied with a simple X. On Sienna, I'll be doing a lot more epoxy bonding and complexer glue ups. So I want to establish this habit right now. The surfaces of the parts are now being roughed up with a coarse grit sandpaper. Now it's important to think about how this is going to be clamped, and we do that with screws in this case. And I want to pre-drill the screw holes before I start gluing. So as soon as the glue is on there and the two parts are together, we can just screw the whole thing down and take the dowels out again. The plastic will protect the workbench and also make sure that the part will not be glued to the thing. Okay, so let's mix up some epoxy. What I still find a bit tricky is to find out how much I actually need. So these surfaces are not that large, so I just go for 2 pumps and see how far that I get. Double hand shoes. Trick you see all those people do on YouTube, so let's do it. All right, so let's go for it. 2 pumps. 1, 2. Okay, let's stir it up. Stir it up. I think that should be good. Let it rest for a little bit. Now, I didn't make this glue up particularly easy for myself because I'm using a fast hardener with temperatures that are quite high. I have this material to use, and also my own material, which I use for Sienna, is with a fast hardener. I bought that because I wanted to be able to use it in colder temperatures. So this is not the easiest thing to do. For the impregnating, it's not that big of a deal because as long as the epoxy stays sticky, there will be a chemical bond, and that's what we're looking for. But with the thickened epoxy, the kickoff process seems to go a bit faster, or like a lot faster. That's probably because there's just more mass to it, and if it starts to react, it heats up. You can really feel it in the cup, and then you feel like, okay, I need to speed up now. So that's what's happening. I don't think you'll see it particularly, but yeah, that's part of the process. So to make it easier, you can just use a slower hardener, and then you have the time of the world to do your glue up, and everything will be good. Another pro tip Chris gave me is to clamp it down from a central point, like a bigger glue up like this. And that is to make sure that no air will be trapped somewhere in the middle of the glue up. And here you can see the squeeze out coming, which is a good sign that there's enough epoxy in there. Alright, so the epoxy had a few days to cure, and this is the result. Ooh, look at that. And the big question is, will the two halves still fit together? Now, as we watch me preparing the both halves to try and mate them together, I want to thank everybody that has subscribed to the channel lately, and I want to thank you in particular that you're still here watching this video. That really means a lot to me, because it takes me a lot of time to make them. So what you just saw me do was to clear out the dowel holes from some excess epoxy, and a process that's very satisfying for me is to sand the parts and make them look just a little bit better. Alright guys, I'm so happy, I'm so relieved that it all fits still. These are two halves together, so there's always a chance the stuff moves a little bit and it's not completely right. It is wood also warps or moves in its own way, but this whole thing works. It fits together. If you look at this side, this is the raw foil shape. So now that this fits together and we have the raw keel, we still need to machine the foil shape in it. But that will be for our next video. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you stay tuned. Please subscribe and like the video. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this in the comments. See you later.